and every day. We need each other in every way. Work together is the right thing to do. Destiny is up to me and you. Maybe you'll discover that we really like each other. My sisters and my brothers, I'm a lot like you. I'm a lot like you.
Catch the winning spirit. I'm a lot like you.
Our next set of winning spirit principles is called the heart of a team. And I'd like to introduce to you a person who's a really big part of our team, Hillary Hoskinson.
Thanks, Tom. We work with business groups around the country that call themselves a business team. And we like to challenge that notion. Are you really a team or just a working group? Do you share a common set of principles, or are you working with your own personal agenda?
The first of these principles is called cultivating the right attitude.
I'd like to introduce CHOELEEN LOUNDAGIN, author of Inner Champion and a very successful skating coach, and ask you a question, CHOELEEN. You work a lot with individual performers, and attitude must be a big part of the way they come to the ice arena every day. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure, Tom. I think attitude is everything, because often in both sport and in life, what you expect is what you get. And so if you come, say the skaters come into the rink with a bad attitude, expecting to have a bad day or not being able to accomplish the things that they're working on, they're not going to have a great day. But if they go in there and know that they can handle whatever challenges that they face, they're going to have a great day and they're going to accomplish the things that they want.
CHOELEEN, I agree with what you're saying, and I understand that attitude is important and it's everything, but as a coach, what do you do to help pull out that positive attitude in your skaters?
And what I do is I help them keep in touch with why they love their sport, so that they always know that why they're there, and also just to have them feel really confident with what they're doing, know that they have the abilities to face the challenges of that day.
I'd like to introduce our friend Emil, who's been working with executives for well over 20 years and talks a lot and coaches a lot about attitude. Emil, could you tell us how it shows up in the work you're currently in?
Yeah, the most important attitude I think an individual and even a team brings is what I call playing full out, leave nothing on the table. A lot of people are concerned about looking bad or what happens if they lose, even what happens if they get fired. Years ago, I heard a story that the samurai warriors used to start every day by contemplating their death. They'd sort of work through that, think about that, get over it, and then they could go and literally play full out. That's what I ask executives to do. That's what I ask teams to do. Don't leave anything on the table. If you walk away and there's anything left, then you hadn't lived up to what you are accountable for and responsible for, either in work or in your personal life.
That's an interesting point, Emil, when you talk about not leaving anything on the table, because it reminds me of a guy I played with, and we talk about cultivating an attitude. And I don't think anyone exemplifies that more than Ronnie Lott. And one day, if you don't think this brings attitude to the table, then I think we're all in the wrong spot. But one game Ronnie was in, we were in the middle of the game, and he actually gets his finger caught in between the guy's shoulder pad, and it tears his fingertip off, basically. And so they gave him a choice. Now, do you want to sew it back on and you'll be out 6 to 8 weeks, possibly more, or do you want to just cut it off? We can cut it off and then you can play next week. And obviously you know Ronnie Lott, and the people that know him know what decision he made, and that was to cut it off and to play next week. And if that doesn't send a message to the rest of the team saying this is what I'm willing to do to help this team get better and stay on the field, and brings an attitude that becomes also kind of contagious, because when other people see what people are willing to do and sacrifice, all of a sudden maybe what I think I'm sacrificing isn't quite enough, and I need to step my game up to try to catch up with them.
Mike, you are involved in corporate transformation around the country, and I heard you talking about a group that you worked with that was really struggling with their attitude. And not only have you told us about the success, but I've talked to the CEO of the company and seen some of the results that have happened. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies that go through downturn cycles, which probably any company is going to go through in the history of their corporate life. The difference between the real winners is those that can take themselves out of the down cycles and come back up into an up cycle. And at that company, it was a company that had been on top of their industry for about 10 years, and then for the last 4 years had slowly seen their market share erode continuously. And everybody from the CEO all the way down to the frontline employees, was a large retailer. So people in stores all across the nation had lost the idea that they could win. The stores looked dumpy. The people weren't treating customers that well. The management team was frustrated. The creativity was gone from the team. And we worked with them to get that turned around. And as you know from working with that team as well, it can come down to one person sometimes getting the right idea into people's heads. And I remember one session that actually both of us were at, where the CEO recanted a story about some of the success that they had had early on. And what he challenged the team to do was to not think about generating more profits, or it's not just about the next buck that we're going to make, but it was about, let's get that winning feeling back in our hearts again. Let's get that snap in our step. We know we can win. Let's remember some of the things that we've done. And it's amazing that in the course of 3 or 4 months, they turned around a declining sales trend into growth, and they've been on that for now, since we've been out there, the next 12 months. And it seems like they're continuing on that path. It started out with the attitude, and from the attitude, then the execution and treating customers better and making the profits grow can follow.
I agree, because I think this is something that when we came down to visit with your company that I'd spoke to about, where we seem to have to do the same thing in sports. When guys and teams get behind, they have a tendency really to want to make that catch up fast. And instead, you build yourself a bigger hole. And when we were the same way, when we got in trouble, forget about the score of the game Bill Walsh used to talk about. Step back, let's go back to our fundamentals of the game, plays that we all know how to run, that we've run from day one, and we would start to build, and we would do the same thing. We'd have small successes. Then all of a sudden, that 5-yard gain turned into a 20-yard gain, turned into a touchdown. And the next thing you know, we're back in the ball game again, and it sounds like a similar story.
Very similar.
Well, attitude is critical for success. It's not developed overnight. And your key players must have an attitude of working with their teammates, being willing to sacrifice, and bringing their teammates along with them. It's absolutely critical.
So how are we going to practice having a great attitude? There's a lot of ways we can do it in a lot of different areas. But one thing I like to do is have fun when I practice. So I'd like to invite you in the morning when you get up, if you go in the shower or whatever you do, to begin talking to yourself in a very positive and upbeat way, as if you were talking to your best friend. Go in the shower and sing or say things to yourself like, today's a great day. I can do whatever I want. I can tackle whatever challenges ahead of me. It might sound corny, but it creates a momentum and an energy which puts you in the right framework and the right attitude. Talk to yourself as if you were talking to your very best friend.